I think the key difference is private equity can be a little more patient, although you wouldn't think so with 3 to 5 years. They actually can because publicly traded companies are really very quarterly focused. They have to deliver results every quarter because their investors are looking for, the stock price to go up every day, every month, every quarter, and improve their return on investment. Whereas a private equity firm, they have a 3 to 5 year or sometimes longer, sometimes shorter, but they don't have a quarterly focus, although we do look at our performance quarterly. They're more interested in what are we building and how are we getting there. And they understand, if it's a good private equity firm, they understand that isn't always a linear path. It takes, there's some fits and starts that happen and whatnot.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Future of GovCon. This is a weekly podcast to bring together experts from across the industry and look at what's happening today and how it's going to impact the future of our industry. I'm Jake Fraser. I'm the owner and CEO of Precision Talent Solutions. Leading one of the industry's top executive search firms, I get to talk to influencers every day. C-suite executives, board members, growth leaders, top government officials, military flag officers. And on this podcast, what we're doing is we're bringing in these experts from AI, from space, from medical, from logistics, from engineering. And we're sitting down and talking about what's happening in their specific area of the industry and how it will impact the future. So pour a cup of coffee and let's get started. Hey, everybody, it's Jake. Welcome back to another episode of the Future of GovCon, where we have a fantastic guest this week, one of the legends of the government technology space and also the private equity space. We have Mr. Dennis Kelly joining us. Dennis is the CEO of Tyto Athene, which is at Arlington Capital Partners property. And Dennis has just got such a great view and a track record in GovCon. It's great to have you here this week, Dennis.
Thanks, Jake. Happy to be here.
We've been watching you grow Tyto over the past couple of years since you joined the company. I've had the honor of working with you and help you build out some of your team. And it's a fascinating business. And we know you're at the tip of the spear right now of what's going on in this government technology space. And so we're really looking forward to getting your perspective.
Great. Looking forward to it.
Before we get into knowing Dennis a little bit, kind of high level, talk about, your main focus right now as the CEO of Tyto and leading in this space. What's the big overriding theme you see right now?
Well, if I had to pick one thing, Jake, I think it would be the impact that artificial intelligence is having on the mission space that we support. It's literally changing every day. So it's something that we have to keep up with constantly. But I think the ability that it gives us to support our customers' mission faster, more efficiently, more effectively is pretty amazing. So I'd say that's probably from a technology point of view, that's the big thing that everybody's really watching right now. We're not the only ones. I mean, this is something the whole industry is watching. But I think those that can harness the power of AI in a good way, there's bad ways you can harness AI, I believe. But if you can harness it in a good way to support your customer's mission, it can really be a force multiplier.
For our audience, towards the end, we'll talk a little bit more about this AI theme. Dennis shared an article with me that's kind of kept me up at night. And I want him to talk about that a little bit later on the show. Just some courses of action that could happen based upon the path we're heading with AI. Before we do that and keep you up at night, let's get to know Dennis a little bit. You got like me, former military, which is a great foundation. But talk a little bit about growing up, how you got around the military, and some of those big life decisions that have shaped who you are today.
Yeah, great. No, so I was initially brought up in New Jersey. My dad was a truck driver, my mother a waitress, so definitely came from blue collar roots.
Sounds like a country song.
Yeah, there you go. Sounds like a country song. And when I was in high school, we moved to Florida. And that's really where I got my connection to the military. In high school, I was in a Navy junior ROTC program. And I did that all through high school, and it really gave me a strong connection to the military, but mostly the Navy, because I was in Navy ROTC. So from that, I decided to join the Navy, and I decided to go enlisted. I wanted to be really where the rubber met the road technically, and so I became a sonar technician, and I was in the Navy's Advanced Electronics program. So I went to school for 2 years, really just to sort of before I ever stepped on a ship, just to learn how to maintain the sonar system I was responsible for. And the system that I managed and maintained and troubleshot was a system that had 42 refrigerator-sized cabinets in it, full of electronics spread around 5 different spaces on the ship. So I learned a lot about working under stress and eventually managing teams of people toward a common mission outcome. So my first ship was in Yokosuka, Japan, forward deployed with the Midway Battle Group, and that is now a museum in San Diego. So it reminds me when I go to San Diego how old I am. But no, I did that for a couple years, and then shifted over to the East Coast with another Knox class frigate, and did a med cruise, and finally found my way in Newport, Rhode Island, where I decided that I was going to jump into industry and really put my technical skills to use. And that's where I sort of got my start in industry.
So you had your hands on technology for a long time. Sound like you're a technology native, if you will.
Yeah, and if you can believe it, I married a woman who's a whole lot smarter than I am in technology. My wife is a computer engineer, and she worked for Raytheon doing submarine combat systems. So if I ever got stumped, I would just ask her, "Okay, what do I do about this?" And she'd usually have the answer for me, especially if it was software related.
She could do your homework for you, right?
Absolutely, yep,
It's smart to marry up. Good job.
no doubt.
So talk a little bit about things you learned in the military that you carry with you today as a CEO in government.
Yeah, I think first I would say just the power of a team. There's a whole lot more you can do with a team of people thinking through a problem, working toward a solution than you can on your own. So I really learned the power of teamwork in the Navy, because the Navy is one big team, whether you're a team in a division on a ship or the ship itself or even a battle group. Um, if everybody isn't working in unison, working toward the same common cause, there's going to be issues, right? So teamwork. Second is don't forget where you came from, right? So when I was a junior enlisted guy, when I became, a more senior enlisted guy, I didn't forget where I came from. And I remembered the challenges and the problems I had as a junior enlisted guy. And you sort of have to look out for your folks, right? So I think looking out for each other and taking care of each other is another key leadership lesson that I learned in the Navy that I've carried through to, the various CEO positions I've been in leadership positions. So I'd say those two things are top of mind.
Why what was the decision to leave the military? What triggered that?
Well, that had a lot to do with my wife that I met up in Newport, who declared she wasn't going to be married to a sailor. So to be honest, she wanted a more normal marriage where I wasn't gone for 7 months at a time. And I'll tell you, the folks in the military who live that life, I have the greatest respect for them, because it's a very, very hard life and it's a very difficult sacrifice. So, for my wife to be at the time, she just wasn't really interested in that kind of a life. So that informed me on, okay, well then I probably need to come up with another option, because I wasn't leaving her. It sort of worked out as it's one of the first marital sort of compromises I made in my life. 36 years later, there's a few more.
Well done. That's a successful track record. How long did you wind up serving, Dennis?
6 years.
Okay. So that's perfect, right? So now, I mean, you're doing a lot of solutioning with customers now, right? In the Talon Lab and sitting down. How does that perspective, having been in the service, help you understand kind of the challenges your customers are up against here at Tyto?
Yeah, I think you always have to be grounded in the mission. So if you're not grounded in the mission, I think if you're creating a technical solution that doesn't really start with and end with the mission, I think you're missing the boat. I think you have to have that mission orientation. Um, Technology, just for technology's sake, usually doesn't work out very well. So it has to be a combination. Technology is great, and technology can help us do great things. But if you don't have that mission orientation, I think you miss out on what the customer's needs really are. So we always start with that mission orientation. If we're going to support a customer in a particular mission area, I make sure I have somebody on my team that understands that mission deeply and can work with the customer, and then almost act as a liaison with our technology people who, in many cases, never served in the military, don't have that mission orientation. But our folks that do can translate for them. Okay, here's what we need to do. Here's why this is important. And actually, that's how I started in my career in this business. I was that mission expert for anti-submarine warfare for the company I worked for. And I was explaining to the software engineers, here's what we need to do. Here's why we need to do it this way versus that way. And here's the technology that will work versus won't work. So I think that is central in my uh, calculus on how we work with customer and customer mission requirements.
Before we get into your GovCon career, and I hope a lot of the Tyto team members out there are watching this, what's something interesting about Dennis Kelly growing up that a lot of people don't know? Hobbies, achievements, mischief you got into?
Well, yeah, my mother used to call me Dennis the Menace for a reason, right? So yeah, I was a little bit of a mischievous kid, but I think overall I was a pretty good kid. I'd say what I would point out is probably when I was in my late teens, before I joined the Navy, I decided to give back to the community by joining the local ambulance corps. So I was a an ambulance driver at 18 years old,
Cool.
and really got to see uh, a lot about what can go wrong in a person's life, and car accidents. And I've seen, in the short time I did it for a couple years. um, I learned a lot about uh, emergencies and how to respond to emergencies and whatnot. So I think that was a formative couple years for me, and I enjoyed it.
So that's a testable item to everyone out there that Dennis was Dennis the Menace and he was an ambulance driver. That's interesting.
Right.
So talk about you're getting out of the Navy. You made the first of many compromises with your wife. Good decision. First job in government contracting. How did you get it? You already talked about what you did. How did you just wind up in the industry?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I actually had a job to go work for General Electric down in the Norfolk area, being a field tech rep on the sonar system that I was a technician for. And the second compromise was my wife really didn't want to move to Norfolk, Virginia, so she was well connected in the defense community up there in Newport, Rhode Island, and connected me with a friend of hers who was also a retired, as a senior chief petty officer, sonar technician. And through that network, and this sort of taught me the power of networking. Through that network, I got my first job. He introduced me to somebody at a company called Analysis and Technology, and they were looking for somebody that was an ASW, anti-submarine warfare subject matter expert, which I was as a sonar technician. And so my first job was a system engineer, where I worked with a software development team to develop tactical decision aids for Navy anti-submarine warfare teams. So that was my first job. It was a lot, of a learning curve for sure. There's a lot to learn, but I had a great time starting my career in that group.
That's great foundation, right? The Navy hands-on, the end customer, now moving up into the translating the challenges of that role to the software developers. To our audience, I mean, those of you who don't know Dennis, I mean, he's been described as a serial growth leader. He's been a CEO for 5 times, and of 5 different companies, and has just a great track record of helping to build companies and help investors maximize returns. So you went from being technical. How did you get into the management track? I see you stopped off and got your MBA at Rhode Island. Talk about the move from being a technician, and obviously you were a leader in the Navy, but how did you move from being a technician in the industry and get into the kind of the C-suite glide path?
Yeah. So I always had, I guess, a calling for leadership in my mind, that started in the Navy. But as I went into my first job, I don't think it was maybe 18 months. They were asking me to lead the team that I was basically giving, the mission orientation to. And that is a fairly natural progression. You're if you're sort of guiding a team toward, here's what we need to do to meet the mission requirements, and you're interfacing a lot with the customer, it puts you in a natural position to be the leader of a team that does that sort of thing. So that's where I had my first start. It started off as a project manager. Eventually, I became a program manager that had multiple projects. And then ultimately, I became a vice president that had multiple programs supporting multiple different customers in multiple different mission areas. So that was sort of the progression to, sort of my entry level sort of executive position. During all this time, of course, being an enlisted guy, I didn't have my education. So went to night school and got my bachelor's degree. That took me 6 years. As you pointed out, Jake, I went to the University of Rhode Island and got my MBA. So that gave me the educational background that I really needed um, to take that executive, that entry executive position and progress it up the chain to, corporate positions and ultimately CEO, like as we talked about 5 times. So.
How'd you get your first CEO job?
Well, I was actually working for a company called Antion, and I was the senior. I was a corporate officer. I was a senior VP for corporate communications and investor relations. And the deal I had with the CEO there was that I would do that job for 2 years because I didn't want to get pigeonholed into being an investor relations guy. Although it taught me a ton, and the CEO wisely said, if you want to be, well, I learned a couple of lessons during my interaction with Joe Camp. He was the CEO there. I went in first to tell him I didn't really want to do that as my next job, be an investor relations guy. And he said, Dennis, you were in the Navy, right? And I said, yeah. And he goes, you're familiar with the term orders? And I go, yeah, I'm familiar with orders. He goes, well, think of this as an order. I wasn't asking you what you wanted to do next. I was telling you what your next job was going to be. So I sort of understood what he said. And he said, seriously, you're going to learn a lot about being a CEO. If you want to be a CEO someday, this job's going to teach you a lot about, the financial aspects of it. You're really going to get to put your MBA to work and whatnot. So that is, you know, that is the sort of job that, was my springboard into being a CEO, because I got a call after a couple years, and that I was asked if I wanted to lead a subsidiary of a publicly traded company called Tech Team. They had acquired a couple of government contractors, and they needed someone to come in and integrate those two businesses. Tech Team Government Solutions. And so that was my first. Technically, it wasn't a CEO job, and I don't count it as one of my 5 because of that, but it was a president job. So I was president of that government subsidiary. But I consider that my first sort of CEO sort of like job.
I do a lot of coaching. I never thought of investor relations being a kind of a foundation for it. It's a great career path because it's all about learning to tell the story, right? It's the managerial accounting. It's learning how to manage shareholders and
Yep.
I'm not saying massage the numbers, but make the numbers work.
Yeah, and we were a publicly traded company, and they actually, to Antion's credit, they sent me off to school for a month and learned the art, if you will, of communicating with the investor community. And there's a whole bunch of things you have to think about, like Reg FD, regulation, fair disclosure. You can't tell one person something you haven't told everybody else, because that would give them inside information. So you really have to be careful about who. We had 21 sell side analysts who covered our stock. And so I had a headset on all day long talking to sell side analysts and being really careful that I didn't say what I wasn't supposed to say to one versus the other. and they're always trying to get information out of you. So it was a
Right.
very interesting experience.
What a great experience. So you have the foundational military experience, right? Hands-on technical, get into industry and start translating that into, I guess, designing products and then running programs and managing investors, which has obviously been what's helped make you so successful, I would guess, as a CEO in growing companies and helping investors exit those assets, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Fantastic. So not many people in this industry can say with the I think if you ask anybody about Dennis Kelly, he just got such a great reputation as a fine human being and a great executive. But there aren't many folks out there that can say they've been a CEO 5 times and successful CEO 5 times. And I know you've gotten kind of carved out a niche in the private equity space as well. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. And that explains why it's been so many times because I had, I had showed up at this company, actually. I had an employee say to me, he says, I've checked you out. He says, you move around a lot. You can't seem to keep a job. And he just didn't understand the way. And I thought it was a pretty brash thing for a guy to say to the new CEO who's coming in, but that's okay. I'm okay with that. But I explained to him that, when you're working with private equity, they have an investment time horizon. It's usually not forever. It's typically 3 to 5 years. And the mission is to go in, build the business, do great things for the customer. And then at some point, there's going to be another iteration in that company's life cycle. And that is going to involve an exit of that investor and a passing of the torch to another investor, or it could be a larger company that's going to integrate that capability into their greater solution offering. So it necessarily requires you to move around a little bit, right? So when you're done with one mission, you go do another.
You work yourself out of a job. Right.
Yeah, you do. You work yourself out of a job, but it's never been an issue because I don't think I've ever been out of a job more than a month. And the reason I was out of a job for a month is because my wife really wanted me to take a break and we went to Australia and New Zealand for a month. Otherwise, I would have probably left on a Friday and went to work on a Monday. So I've never had a challenge with, trying to find my next opportunity. It usually found me. And I've been very blessed and fortunate in that sense.
Just a little bit this is like a CEO fireside chat topic, but what's the difference, skill sets, motivations in leading like a publicly traded company as a CEO versus a private equity owned company?
So I think the key difference is private equity can be a little more patient, although you wouldn't think so with 3 to 5 years. They actually can because publicly traded companies are really very quarterly focused. They have to deliver results every quarter and, because their investors are looking for, the stock price to go up every day, every month, every quarter, and improve their return on investment. Whereas a private equity firm, they have, a 3 to 5 year or sometimes longer, sometimes shorter, but they don't have a quarterly focus, although we do look at our performance quarterly. They're more interested in what are we building and how are we getting there. And they understand, if it's a good private equity firm, they understand that that isn't always a linear path. It takes, there's some fits and starts that happen and whatnot. So I think if you're a CEO of a publicly traded company, you have to be comfortable. And, when I was at Antion, we were publicly traded. And I saw this, especially as the investor relations guy, you have to be comfortable with that quarterly performance regimen and sort of march. I think as a private equity CEO, which I prefer because it just gives me, I think, a little bit more runway to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish. So it's
Yes. We do a lot of coaching. I wind up coaching a lot of transitioning very senior military flag officers. And I always go to that point. I said, you need to look at the governance of the company, the ownership structure and the governance, because that's going to drive how they make decisions. And this idea of being accountable for quarterly earnings versus private equity versus a family-owned company that can they can play the long game and be more strategic versus startups where it's high risk, high return. So it sounds like you found your niche, and I know you've run 3 different companies with Arlington Capital Partners, and one of the best private equity companies in the industry in GovCon. We've worked with Ademia, we worked with J&J, we worked with Tyto. Always hear great things about the ACP team. So talk a little bit about the relationship with the operating partners at ACP and why has it worked for you?
Yeah, so I've worked with two different partners at Arlington Capital. One is David Wadlinger. I worked with David on two companies, Centauri and Eclipse. And now I'm working with Michael Lustbader on Tyto. Now, Michael was also on my board at Centauri, so I knew him and, was comfortable with him. So I think I think what works with these guys is they're true partners, right? Um, they really want to help you grow the company, and they're really passionate about the customer mission, which really helps. They're not just financial guys that are looking for a return, although that's important. They're also interested in, the mission that we're supporting. They're very focused on the national security space. That's a big part of their portfolio. They're all cleared, so you can have, the appropriate conversations with them about what we're doing and the challenges that we have. They're careful to make sure that they don't take on, a lot of foreign investors because they don't want to create a problem for the security, uh, you know, process or whatnot for the companies that are in their portfolio. So there's a whole bunch of things that they do really, really well that I think make it a perfect fit for the GovCon industry, in my opinion. I think the thing I like the most about working with them is and this is unique in my experience. They're very comfortable making investments in the business that are beyond just buying companies. So we'll talk about it, I'm sure, in a little bit. But the Talent Lab that we have established, that's like a huge investment in people. We've hired 25 people, set up a 15,000 square foot lab space, probably bought $5 million of high end AI compute power. You add it up, it's like, you're talking double digit $1 million of investment. And it's all to create capabilities that our customers need on our dime. And I think if you can do that, you create discriminators that your customers need. And the ability to do that is just magic. It really is. And it's not until I started working with Arlington Capital, I hadn't experienced that. So that's really putting your money where your mouth is and making an investment in the business. And I think it's made all the difference. It's what's enabled me at Centauri, at Eclipse, and now Tyto to, really put discriminating capabilities in place that really get the attention of our customers and really help them meet their mission requirements.
That sounds like I think that's a unique approach from a private equity perspective. Is essentially investing in R&D,
Yeah, absolutely.
which typically they're not patient enough to do that. They want to see something immediate. They want to buy a capability. They want to buy market share. So that's definitely has some vision in it. And
Yep.
I think
And they're still focused on that 3 to 5 year time frame. So it isn't like you can, just do a science project and take many, many years to, admire the problem. You got to move quick. We have to, understand what it is we need to do. And that works because our customers, especially right now, want to go faster. They want capabilities to keep up with the adversaries at a faster pace than we have seen traditionally. And we're seeing that, all over GovCon right now is speed of movement and ability to move fast. And so that really works well. And I think it's a good complement to our customers' own requirements. So it works.
so. To our audience out there, a lot of C-suite folks and aspiring C-suite professionals in the GovCon space. I mean, hearing Dennis talk, it gives you some ideas about how to look for your partners for your careers. And certainly the ACP team is top notch. And so it's good you found your fit. It sounds like you're kind of from the Pulp Fiction, the wolf. They put you in and give you a big challenge, and you figure out the impossible, and you tend to deliver. That's why you've now led 3 companies for ACP, right?
Yeah, no, it's been a great relationship, and again, they're true partners. I really feel like we're truly working the problem together every day, and I like that. And again, it goes back to the thing I talked about in the beginning: teamwork. You can do so much more with a team, and if you're on a team where they've got your back and you've got their back, great things can happen.
Kind of stepping back even broader, 20 years ago, private equity was not very interested in this sector, right? And
Yeah,
certainly,
that's probably true. Not as interested as they are today.
in venture capital, even more so. And now I had a podcast guest saying that this administration's using venture capital as kind of a filter to see where to invest, assuming there's some perfection in the way venture capital does their selection. And,
Right.
so what is the role that you see now and going forward? Kind of moving away from the super primes. There's a new defense tech, a new gov tech coming in. We're seeing it happening, and a lot of it is VC backed and private equity backed. Talk about what that's going to do to innovation. Talk about what it's going to do to the acquisition process.
Well, again, I think you got to go right back to the mission, right? And you got to look at, okay, what are our warfighters dealing with today? Um, and obviously informed by the Ukraine war, the drone threat is real, right? And Iran, you just have to watch the news here over the last week or so. Iran is launching these kamikaze drone sort of things at us, and we're doing the same to them. What we can't do, and this is just an example, is use $2 million missiles, which is the big, huge prime defense contractor's domain, to shoot down a $30,000 drone, right? So there's a whole lot of things going on right now with directed energy weapons, with counter drone technologies, much lower cost missile systems that allow you to take out these drones at a fraction of the cost the bigger sort of large missile systems have today. So I think the defense tech firms are really doing a great job at fielding these novel technologies that are bending the cost curve down and taking cost out, because we will I think we'll have a hard time sustaining every time we want to take down a $30,000 drone, a $2 million missile. It won't be long before you run out of missiles.
Do the math, right? Yeah.
Your bank account's really suffering,
Right.
right? So, and our debt is increasing. So I think the speed at which these firms move, rather than taking, multiple years to sort of go through the classic requirements definition, design, development, test process, which, as we know, for large scale platform systems can take years, sometimes decades. They're moving much, much more rapidly. And it's really been something to watch. And I think the industry is sort of taking that lead and going, we need to do the same thing. We need to, whatever the mission is, we need to move much, much quicker and much faster than we have traditionally done. So I think speed of movement's important. I think the government, especially in this administration right now, is trying to put procurement systems in place that support that, because sometimes the procurement system is what can elongate things and take a long time and whatnot. So I think you're starting to see things like use of OTAs right now, SBIR phase threes. It's just a couple of examples where, that they can buy from a commercial, non-traditional entity and do so at a much, much quicker pace than they have done before. So I think the whole industry right now is adjusting to that. And I think it's going to be good for the country. I think it's going to be great for the warfighter. They're going to get fielded capabilities much quicker. It does mean that sometimes some capabilities may be fielded prematurely, and we can fail fast and learn from it and improve it. And I think there's been just an awakening that some of that's okay. I mean, you got to be careful you're not risking life and limb, but there's certain precautions you have to take, obviously. But I think speed of movement is really important because the enemy gets a boat. they, they're adapting just like we are. And, if we don't adapt to their new TTPs, tactics, techniques, procedures, we're gonna miss the boat.
Yeah. And obviously the investors are liking it, right? They're lining up to invest in this space and hiring guys like you to help drive the growth, organic and
Yep.
external, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt. I mean, I think the investors, most of the investors, I think are realizing that this is the new way. And, they see the value in it, and they see that there could be a good return on their investment. And we have great examples of that in the marketplace where the multiples on these defense tech companies are eye-watering. So
Yeah. I've been watching in all some of the acquisitions you've been doing. You want to talk a little bit about MindPoint, Microtel, Stack Armor, some of the things you've been adding to your capabilities?
yeah,
Right.
so I'll start chronologically at the beginning. Microtel, they do some NASA semi-autonomous vehicle software development. And we like them because they had some real AI chops, to do, basically put a mission on Mars and collect samples and whatnot. And the semi-autonomous nature that vehicle requires AI. So they were pretty early adopters of AI, and so we like that. And it's a small group, but we really like the tech that they were working with, and so we did that shortly after I got here. And I can't even take credit for it because it was like the second or third day I was here. So that deal was already sort of in the
Yeah.
works. Um, MindPoint Group came next. That came in the summer of 24. And that was all about, hey, if we're going to be a network modernization company, which Tyto is most probably well known for, we have to be able to protect that network. And so cybersecurity became absolutely critical. And MindPoint Group, that's all they did. They did cybersecurity, and they had 400 cybersecurity experts, people, and we brought them in July of 2024. And it's amazing what it's done to Tyto. It is really, I mean, a lot of our big growth targets right now are cyber oriented, because now you can take all of the experience that we have with network modernization, have the cybersecurity, because a lot of times cybersecurity is part and parcel to what you're delivering to the customer. So I think MindPoint Group gave us that capability, and they brought some discriminating technologies of their own to the table, like SOC as a service, as an example. And, we're building on that, and actually
That's
building
a
with
that's a security operations center, just so the
that's
team knows
correct.
out
Yep.
there.
Security Operations Center as a service. And the government really likes as a service model right now, because they'd rather pay for outcomes versus just butts and seats sort of thing. So I think that lends itself very, very well to that kind of business model. And then we just acquired in May of last year Stack Armor, and Stack Armor is again definitely on the cybersecurity realm of things. So it was a real complement to MindPoint Group, and what they do is they help applications get on, get ATO'd, authority to operate, on FedRAMP. And so they have a AI driven, um, automated process, semi-automated process that helps an application developer go through all of the steps that you have to do to get that thing certified that it's cyber safe and whatnot to go on to FedRAMP. And that has taken as long as 18 months sometimes for an app developer to get their app out on the government cloud. And Stack Armor, they boast being able to do it. I can say we boast now because they're part of us, that we can do that within 45 days. So that's a
Wow,
huge, and again, it goes to speed of movement.
you got to.
I was
Great.
out at FCA West a couple years ago, and Admiral Paparo said in his keynote speech, his number one problem, so this is a 4-star, his number one problem was not being able to get mission critical applications on the network fast enough. Like, he'd been working with, companies to develop capabilities that can help him meet his mission requirements. So again, it's that speed of movement, but the stumbling block was being able to get it certified and,
Federal, right?
ATO,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, when I heard that and I saw the opportunity to acquire Stack Armor, and it was almost like, I don't know, divine intervention or something because it happened, you know, I saw the admiral speak about this 2 months before I saw this Stack Armor book, and I said, "This is perfect. We need this," right? So we, we closed that deal in May of 25, and, it's been phenomenal. So it's really given us a technology discriminator for sure. And although they were helping people get on the cloud, we think, and we're doing it right now, we can repurpose that software to help government customers do continuous monitoring of their networks. And I can tell you right now, there are many customers that are interested in talking with us about that. And so it's been a real door opener for us, and we've been having some great conversations with customers, you know, in DoD, in all sorts of different government agencies, probably more national security oriented customer agencies, but it's been fantastic. So as we're thinking, and that is a big part of our strategy is creating technology discriminators. In fact, I'd say it's the number one thing of our strategy, and we're going to do make or buy decisions on that front. And so when we decide to buy MindPoint Group or Stack Armor, we're doing a buy decision there because we think we can get there faster with that capability. With Talon Labs, that's our make strategy. That's like, okay, we're working with customers and we want to make those capabilities in our sort of shop, if you will, in our Talon Lab. So
Super smart. Super smart. It supports both ways to grow. Kind of, let's look ahead a little bit, Dennis. I mean, you've been around the block a time or two, and you have a really good read on investors, on the market, but also the government. What do you see? What do you see the big changes that are happening today that are going to shape the future in your space?
well, I think this bending this cost curve is a big one. I think customers are much more cost conscious now, and they really want to use technology to help them be more effective and not as expensive, if you will, in meeting their mission requirements. So I think we're going to see a lot more focus on that. I think we've seen it in the last year for sure. I mean, Doge is an example of, just taking a real microscope to, really all of the programs in government and trying to find places where it can be done more effectively. So I think we'll see that. I think we'll see the procurement system adjust to that. And so the use of OTAs, I think, will go up. I think, I would just call it non-traditional vehicles. I think we're going to see more use of that because the government can move faster. And at the same time, I think government is really looking to revamp the FAR, Federal Acquisition Regulations, to make it more nimble and efficient and move faster. So I think speed of movement is the big thing we're going to see in the next several years. And I think we're going to see everybody sort of moving in that direction. And you either adapt or, you fall behind. And
Right.
so we choose to adapt and innovate. And, that's what we're focused on.
Let's go 3 years in the future. It's 2029. We've had an election. We have another administration. We don't know which party, and who. It's head spinning just to watch the world. But let's talk about the area of AI, because I know you sent me that very, very, I don't know, skin
Scary.
crawling, scary article by Schumer. 3 years from now, what do we look like? What is this defense tech, gov tech sector look like 3 years from now? Who's leading the pack? What are they buying? How are people? How are the private equity guys treating it? What do we look like 3 years from now?
Well, I think as you mentioned, and as the Schumer article, which Michael Lusbader sent me that article, so that just goes to the partnership. They see something, they say something, we do the same. And in that article, it basically says if you dabbled with AI about a year ago, what AI is today is totally different. And so the artificial intelligence, the state of the art is constantly evolving. It's changing. And in fact, Schumer says it can change actually month to month. So, he says if you're using the free version of, something like Chat GPT, you're probably missing the boat. You need to, have a paid version so you can access the full capabilities that it has. So we've done that. We've embraced that, and we've taken several different AI tools. Probably, I just looked at a list the other day. It's probably 15 we're using right now, and we're testing them out and trying them all the time, and seeing which ones work better. Because I think those tools can help you write code. Those tools, and what Schumer says, can help anyone in any job do their job better. And think about that. An accountant can be more efficient through the use of AI. And I think people focus sometimes is, well, AI is going to take my job. And I think my CFO said it the other day. He goes, I don't think AI is going to take anyone's job unless they don't adapt to using AI for their job. So I think that's the key, is how do you take AI in whatever you do? If you're a CEO, I'm using AI today to do my job. It's not just my software developers using AI to sort of meet mission requirements. So I think you're going to see AI, and you have to have an acceptable use policy, and you need to monitor how you're using it and whatnot. But you need to give your people permission to start experimenting with it, because I think we're going to see in 3 years, I think we're going to see huge leaps in capability. And I think we're going to see it all over the place. I think we're going to see it in back office efficiency. I think we're going to see it in business development. I think we're going to see it in your world, talent acquisition. I think AI is you're probably already using it, I would imagine. They're probably sifting through hundreds or thousands of resumes and serving up the best 5 or 6 for your client. So I think we have to embrace that, because that is where the future is heading. And, I see huge steps forward in how AI helps all of us do our jobs and helps our customers meet their mission requirements. I think it's almost 3 years away is a long time in the AI world.
Right.
I think you really have to stretch your imagination to think about what the art of the possible is. And that's what I think we're going to see in 3 years.
Incredible. Yeah. Coming from someone who truly would know, Dennis Kelly, got one word that I'd ask, like, how would you describe with one word? You can hyphenate a word if you need to. How do you describe your gut feeling about where we're heading in your area, in this defense GovTech space? What's the one word you use to describe?
Well, if I can hyphenate, I think I would say cautious optimism.
Okay.
Right. I mean, I am very optimistic about the future of this industry. I've been in this industry for 38 years, so I've seen a lot of ups and downs. And I can tell you that this is a very exciting time, but it's also the time of great change. There's a lot, and I think in those 38 years, I don't ever think I've seen a new administration come in and impact the change in our GovCon space as much as this administration has done. And I give them credit, because they're looking to move very, very quickly. I'm not taking political sides here. It's just been pretty remarkable to watch how quickly they move the ball down the field. I've never seen it like that before. So I think that could just be adapting to the new norm that we're in right now. But I think I'm very optimistic. But the cautious part is, and I guess nimble would be the other word, is you have to be able to adjust to those changes, because they're coming rapidly. It's only been a little over a year that this administration has been in office, and look at what's happened in the last year.
Yeah.
And the changes that have occurred, and the programs that have been canceled and started. And it's remarkable. So I think you got to be cautious, and you have to have the ability to adjust and adapt to that almost every day.
It is almost every day, right?
Yep.
The world,
It is.
way today, and the world changes.
That's right.
Dennis, thanks so much for your time. It's an honor to have you on the podcast. It's great to work with your company. You have some great leaders there. It's a great brand to represent to the market. So but it's good to spend a little bit of time with you, and it's good to work with another portfolio company with an ACP. It's a fantastic team you're a part of. Hope
Thanks,
we
Jake.
have you back again later, and hope to see you out in the industry here over the rest of the year, Dennis.
Awesome. Thanks, Jake. Really appreciate it.
All right. To our audience out there, hope you enjoyed this discussion with Dennis Kelly. Again, you aren't going to meet many 5-time CEOs that have the track record that Dennis has. So hope you listened hard and took some notes. Join us next week. We got another fantastic guest coming up. If you need any questions, want to reach out, I'm sure Dennis is online. I'm always there. LinkedIn, pop me a note. Happy to take a call. So tune in next week. We'll see you. All right, so thanks for joining me on another episode of the Future of GovCon. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation and some of the bold predictions. If you did, take a second, share it on your social media, subscribe on YouTube. If you have any ideas for future guests or topics you'd like to have covered, hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm always there, and you can always learn more about precision talent solutions at pts.careers. Look forward to seeing you next week on our next episode.